Hey friends, it's TJ. Welcome back to another episode of Tea with TJ, and today I have another TJ on the show, TJ Gibson. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
So just quickly for our guests, can you tell me your story?
Sure. It's always so tough with that. So first of all, it's really weird hearing my first and last name being said like on an online creation type of thing. It's so weird hearing my full name. But anyway, my name is TJ. I am a very insane person. No, so online I go by Bizarre Hodgepodge. Have gone by that for several years. And so I do a number of different things. One of them is being a personal stylist. The other is like working an actual like 9-to-5 job in investment operations. That is the one thing that's the thing that pretty much pays the bills. But I also do content creation via Instagram and YouTube. I have a blog that I need to clear the cobwebs off of, to be frank, but it is still available. And so I currently live right outside of Nashville, Tennessee, with the goal of moving into Tennessee like any day now, honestly. Been here for 5 years at this point. I am originally from Mississippi, Jackson to be exact. So that is my hometown. That's where I was born and raised. And yeah, I think that pretty much sums me up in a nutshell.
It's so weird. I think I mentioned this. We had you for a special episode last week, and it's weird that we have been in such close proximity and have never met before.
I know.
Because I grew up in Memphis, and I feel like so many people from Jackson usually end up in Memphis at some point. Like whether it's like for back in my day, when I was there, like the fair or the classic or like, you know, any of those type of big things that happen in Memphis. Like I feel like everybody kind of like descends upon Memphis from like Little Rock and Jackson and, you know, everywhere else. Yeah. So it's weird that I've never encountered you before.
From Jackson to Memphis, I think it's like 3 or 4 hours. So it's not not like a big road trip. So a lot of time, even when I was a kid, like that was like an annual trip for like me and my family. We would go to Memphis for one of the games. I'm not into sports. I just remember being able to go on a road trip, stay in a hotel, and insisting on an indoor pool. I was a spoiled child. Wow. So I was like, if we're going somewhere, I want an indoor pool. That's all I cared about. I never went to the game. My dad did. But yeah, Memphis was always like the go-to place. Even when I grew up, some friends and I would like travel to Memphis every now and again just to like get away out of Jackson. So yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, I'm happy to connect with you now. Like this is
same.
It's just proof that the world is, you know, much smaller than we like to believe sometimes.
Very that.
So when we were chatting about having you on for this full episode, I sent you a list of topics, and we mutually agreed on one that spoke to you, writing it down, manifesting what you want, which I always think is a really cool concept for a topic, because I feel like we oftentimes very much don't understand or comprehend how important it is for us to manifest the things that we are actually after in our lives. And even more specifically, write them down, right? And how that can actually lead to those things that we have been trying to bring towards us and gravitate towards in our lives, like bring those things to fruition. So just quickly, can you share with me like what actually like stood out in your mind about that topic, about choosing it?
Well, because I'm currently doing that. Well, I'm always doing it, but I'm extremely intentional right now about writing down the things that I want, writing down the things that I want to manifest. So right now, I am going through a 28-day gratitude practice or gratitude exercise, which is a part of this book called The Magic, which is a part of a larger collection from The Secret. So if anyone knows of The Secret, the book The Secret, there's, I think, about four or five books that are actually a part of, I guess, that collection. It starts with The Secret. It goes into The Power, which is another incredible book. From The Power, you go into The Magic, which is basically, again, a 28-day gratitude practice. And within the way that you manifest things, according to The Magic, which I believe, the way that you manifest more things, or the things that you want in your life, is to start with gratitude. And to write a lot of things down that you are grateful for. So you go from The Magic to the book called, I think it's The Hero or Hero, which I have not gotten to yet. But that is why I chose this particular topic, or why this one really got me, is because I'm currently doing that right now. Like I'm writing everything that I'm grateful for. One, just to be grateful for them, but also to manifest more and to manifest my next chapter in my life and the things that I want to be a part of that chapter.
I love that. There's it's interesting because gratitude is one of those things that I feel like the older I've gotten, the more it's actually become a part of my life. Like, and not to say that I'm not grateful for things, because I am, but I think as we get older and really start to think about life as a whole and like the direction that we want to go in and the goals that we're trying to accomplish, things that, at least for myself, I can only speak for myself, things that pop up that I see, that I acknowledge, I've started to have more gratitude about them. And I know that was probably very confusing, but I'm going to break it down. There are moments where I am going throughout my week, right? And it may be a shitty week, right? Every possible thing that could have gone wrong has gone wrong. Nothing is going right. You know, the thing that I was trying to accomplish this week just didn't happen because of X, Y, and Z. But being able to sit, Saturdays and Sundays are kind of like my recharge days. But being able to sit at the end of the week and reflect on all of the things that did or didn't go right or wrong, kind of like informs the gratitude that I end up having, which it's very hard to see when you're in the moment, but it's so much easier when you are able to like reflect on it. And usually on the weekends is when I can sit and I'm like, oh, you know, that thing that really tripped me up this week, or that audition that I had that like I felt like was crap when I submitted it because I'm so hard on myself. I'm actually really grateful that I had the moment to even audition for that, because some people don't have that opportunity at all, you know? Do you find that you are able to, especially now in this phase that you're in right now, do you find that you have moments where you are able to kind of reflect with gratitude?
Yes. Especially going through, again, this 28-day practice, like it's reading me to filth, honestly, because I am truly understanding and finding that like I have been so ungrateful for things in my past, or you know, and because it gets really granular, this practice, and it really makes you think about all the things you take for granted. And all of the things that you may complain about, that actually you should be grateful for. And so it is often in retrospect that you think about like, oh, I complained about that thing, or I didn't even give a second thought to this thing that was actually really good for me, or actually I could have been really grateful for it. And so I think as we continue to practice gratitude, and as you said, get older and really become more intentional about being grateful, I think the practice comes in being grateful in the moment. or
Mm-hmm.
getting better at being grateful in the moment, as opposed to in retrospect, or as opposed
Absolutely.
to, waiting until after the fact and then you think about, oh wait, actually. So that is what I endeavor to do, is like,
Mm-hmm.
this thing has happened. Maybe it was unexpected, or maybe it wasn't something that I wanted per se, but immediately in the moment thinking, cool, everything is happening for my highest good. I understand this. I'm grateful for this, and just keep it moving.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think that that's how you maintain kind of a high vibration, maybe a high connection. A connection to your higher self. That may
Mm-hmm.
be getting a little too woo woo, a little bit too spiritual
No,
for some
no,
people,
I
but
got you.
yeah, yeah.
It's funny because I feel like again, I'm working towards, I'm always working towards this better version of me, right? And I think we all
Hmm.
are ultimately. But you said something that stuck out to me just now, of really trying to be intentional and be grateful in the moment and not in retrospect.
Yeah.
And I find that just thinking about those specific moments in time for me, I find I'm able to do that more with the like simplistic moments of life.
Yes.
And I have always been a rain person. Like, I love rain, right? The
Me
sound
too.
of it, the sound of a thunderstorm, it just, I don't know, musically or whatever it is, but like it just does something to me.
Hmm.
And I usually, especially in New York City, because so many people are moving, a million miles a minute and like trying to get from point A to point B,
Hmm.
the city kind of stops a little when it like really rains, because people don't
Yeah.
want to be in it, right?
Yeah.
And especially when it's been like gloomy for a few days and people have like seasonal depression and all that stuff, it can kind of like put a damper on the day. And it's funny because those are the moments that I find myself being grateful in the moment, because I'm like, we needed this rain, right? We needed this moment. Like, most times the humidity in the air is already thick and you can feel it just kind of waiting to happen and to pour out. And I find when those moments happen in the city, I find myself being like, oh, thank you.
Yeah.
We needed this.
Yes.
Like, we needed this cool down, or we've gone through a drought for a few months or a few weeks or whatever it is. And when that release finally happens, it's, a collective sigh of relief, even if people are annoyed by it. Have you experienced any sighs of relief in your life when it comes to this trajectory that you're on, of like trying to manifest the things that you want? Like, have you been able to actually manifest something currently?
Everything I have.
Mm.
It's really hard to. That's a hard question to
Mm-hmm.
answer, because it's literally everything I have.
Mm.
I'm overlooking my car right now. Like, I know I manifested that.
Mm.
Um, the place that I'm living in, this townhome that I'm living in, I've manifested literally everything that I have.
Mm.
And I think the beauty of that is, often, or I guess I'll just speak for myself, often I don't realize what I'm manifesting,
Mm.
or I don't realize like the next step that's about to occur, or the things that I'm really, or where I really want to be. I never know, and we can never know, right? We can never know like what is coming next.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, like literally everything. My job, like I started a new job in January of this year.
Mm-hmm.
Had no idea that it was coming, but it came exactly at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
So like every single thing I have manifested. So it's there's no one thing I can pinpoint, because it's literally everything.
I love that.
Yeah.
I feel that that's something that I've, like, again, I'm still new-ish to this space, but in an effort to try to like continue to be a better version of myself year to year, month to month, I find that I agree with you in saying that, like, I think there are some things that I unintentionally manifested that I wasn't thinking about, or like, writing it down necessarily, or speaking it constantly out into the universe. This apartment is one of those things. This is, I mean, this may be sharing too much, but this is a rent controlled apartment in New York City, which is very hard to find. When we found this place, we were not aware that it was rent controlled. They didn't disclose that from the beginning. It wasn't until the lease renewal came that we found out that it was actually a rent controlled building.
Okay.
In New York City, it is one of those things that people are like very much trying to find, to find an apartment that is affordable, that is, consistent month to month, and ultimately lease renewal to lease renewal. And I remember when we were searching for a place, we'd been living in Brooklyn for like 5 years, and I had gone to Disney and worked for about a year and came back to New York, and the pandemic happened and went back to that apartment. And when we were at this crossroads with either staying in this place with an additional roommate or moving out and finding our own place, I very much was at a place in my life at that time where I was like, I think I'm done with the roommate thing. Like, I really want a place of my own, and I would prefer it to be in this neighborhood. And I would prefer it to be something that, like, I'm not moving, year to year, or like in 2 years or whatever it is. Not thinking that as I'm thinking all of these things and saying these things out loud, that I'm actually manifesting this apartment that I have been in now for almost 4 years. So I do believe that, like, there's so much power in speaking and writing and being intentional behind the things you want in life. Is there, let me go back, because I know we've been talking about this, but I want to make sure that listeners and people watching have some sort of information of like how to actually do this. So can you just share with us, when it comes to manifesting things, whether it be verbal or actually writing it down, what does that look like for you when you are trying to be intentional about the things that you want out of your life?
Yeah. So I do believe, especially for me, I do believe that my power, my power of manifestation lies in writing. Because I have, and that's whether you're literally writing or typing, like getting it down on something where you can actually see the words, I think is so much more powerful than simply thinking them or simply saying them. Although speaking the words is powerful as well. But I have seen things on a number of occasions that I have written down that have occurred, whether it's over time or whether it was the next day. Like, and sometimes, again, I'm not even trying to do it, and then it happens. I'm like, oh, I wrote that down. Or sometimes as I'm writing it, I'm so focused with my intention that I know for a fact that it's going to happen. I'll give you an example. So this is a crazy example, but when I first moved to this city, I encountered a rather unpleasant man at this new gym that I joined. As a matter of fact, he was one of those Geminis I was telling you about last week, the one I almost got into a fight with. So it was such an unpleasant encounter and I had never had an encounter like that before. That night I wrote in my journal, and I was so intently focused. I wrote in my journal, I will never see that man again. And I never saw that man again. And so it's almost like I have to be careful about what I write, because I know that is a wonderful way to manifest those things. So, I'm grateful for the gift of writing, because I started writing when I was in middle school. I started writing poetry, and that felt like it just felt so right. It felt like such an amazing creative outlet. And so it's been something that has been my thing for the better part of my life. And so I really understand the power in writing.
That's funny because I do not consider myself a writer. People have been trying to convince me to write my own show and all of those things, and I'm like, but that's just not my jam, y'all. It's interesting listening to you speak so consciously and intentional about writing everything down, because although that's not a space that I inhabit that frequently, because I do it sometimes. I have my notes app and I will jot things down, or if I'm seriously meditating on something or something sitting with me, I will write it down and say, okay, this is what I want. This is what I'm after. This is how I envision my life in the next 5 years. But I find myself speaking things a lot more. And not even necessarily to someone else. There are moments in the shower where I'm saying, I'm going to have a good day today, or I'm going to book this job. I'm going to get an audition for this. And just, I've gotten in the habit of just letting those things fall out. Yeah. And some of those things, if not all of them, have actually come to me. But I've also found, and I've had this conversation with someone else, I've also found that in this idea of trying to manifest the things that you want, you have to be very, intentional, but also receptive to those things, and very specific in what you want, right? Like, you can't just say, I want a car, because you could end up with, a used, I'm not cars, but like, you know what I mean? You could end up with something that was not what you actually wanted or desired. So being very specific in what you want.
I am of two minds about specificity when it comes to manifestation. Because I feel like I've done both, and I feel like I get shot in the foot either way sometimes. So I feel like when I am extremely specific, and I'm very much a all or nothing, black and white kind of person. Okay. So if I am extremely specific about the thing I want, and I don't get exactly that thing, like for instance, I'm trying to I am manifesting a brand new car right now, and I want a specific model, I want specific features, and this. If there's one thing missing out of that, I'm like, see, I shouldn't have been specific because I knew So then I go to the side of, well, let me just be general because I know what I want and I'm going to just trust the universe. And then you get to where you get something that, so it's kind of like you're damned if you do, you're damned if you don't. Sometimes I understand people saying specificity, and I do think, I do think that is like the best way to manifest. But yeah, sometimes I'm just like, I didn't get 100% of it. I got 98%, but I'm still not happy.
I get that. Yeah, I get that. I also think there's a certain level of openness that has to exist, right, when you're trying to get these things to come towards you. Because if you were going out into the world and saying you want these things to come at you, but you're not open to any version of them, right? Because I think in listening to you just now, I think there's still a level of vulnerability and openness that exists, even in the non-specific thing that you were after. But you're still very open to, even if it wasn't that particular car with all of those specific things, you still want a new car, right? Like the desire is still wanting whatever that thing is. And I think that is usually the kind of slight nuance that people probably get hung up on, to where they're like, oh, well, then nothing's happening. Like nothing's coming to me. And I'm like, no, but like, if you're actually open to it, like, yes, you may say you want, I don't know, a new boyfriend or a new girlfriend or whatever, right? That person may not be, if you weren't as specific enough, they may not be all of those things, right? But they might exist in them, but it's going to take time for those things to come out, right? Like it takes a little bit of time and effort to then get that version that you're actually after, but they're still the right person for you.
Okay.
You know, that at least that's how I see it.
I think that's a great way to see it. I really do. I think that that is something I got to work on myself. I got to work on myself with it, because even my therapist has told me that you can't be all or nothing. You can't be black and white. Like there's a gray area, and often it's a great thing to exist in that gray area. Yeah. And I am a huge fan of possibilities. Like, I think people who know me personally, I'm always thinking of a million possible ways that things can happen. I'm like, you know, this person didn't make a decision based off of this one thing. Like, there are so many other factors involved in whatever decision that we make. Like, you think about getting dressed in the morning. You know, it is a matter of, what is the weather like? How am I feeling today? What fits? What doesn't fit? Right? All of these are the factors that contribute to, you know, and even, which I think is a great parlay into you as a stylist. What have you been able to manifest in that medium? I would say clients. I would say, honestly, I would say becoming a stylist was something that I manifested that I didn't even realize I was manifesting. And so often I go on these life takes me on these wild journeys that, again, talking about retrospect, you don't realize why this thing is happening until you go through it and then you look back. So I knew that I wanted to be a stylist after I broke up with like my last big ex, because early in our relationship, he needed to put together some clothes for something, I can't remember, and I was over his house and he was talking about it, and I was like, well, either he asked me for my help or I offered my help. And so we went upstairs to his closet, and I just specifically remember being so in the zone. And because it was someone that I had this affection for, it was as if nothing else existed. It was as if I was so keenly focused, and it just felt so right. And so I always returned to that moment. And I know that is the silver lining of our relationship or our breakup or whatever, because I would not have gotten to the point of realizing just how passionate I am and just how much I love like helping people find their style or putting people into clothes if it weren't for like that moment and a couple of other moments with him. Now, prior to knowing him, I had done like some personal shopping with like some high school friends like several years prior, because I was like, I do really kind of like this, but I never really was serious about it. But then that came back up, and I was like, TJ, all of this, because my brain often runs a mile a minute. I'm very cerebral. But when I am styling, nothing else is going on except I can see this. I can move. This looks good. Let's put a shoe with it. That is how I know. So I feel like just me becoming a stylist was manifested in me meeting him and going through that whole thing. And that's why one of my life's mantras is everything happens for a reason. So, and that's why I also say that we are constantly manifesting things really without even knowing it, because we're always getting to the place that our purpose in life, our calling in life, but we may just not even realize it.
I agree. Yeah. I believe that there is a certain level of, there's a certain level of like destiny that exists in each of our lives, that there are just paths that are inevitable, right? There are paths that will cross, that are meant to happen, that influence your story and how your entire life is shaped. That's beautiful. I love that. I love that, like, even in this relationship that did not necessarily turn out the way you might have thought it would have, it was intentional and integral into your overall story and you finding this moment out of your life. I love that. I love that.
Yeah.
So we are at time.
Damn.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah. I mean, but that's how these things go, you know?
Yeah.
They come and go so quickly. Like
they do. This is true.
Everyone comes and goes so quickly here.
I know.
But I want to say thank you for doing this.
Thank you.
This has been even better than our conversation last week.
For sure, yes.
Where can the folks find you?
You can find me pretty much anywhere at Bizarre Hodgepodge. That's BZARHODGPODG. That's me on Instagram, on YouTube. I have a website, bizarrehodgepodge.com, and that'll pretty much get you to any of my platforms.
Perfect. And then before we go, we like to do this thing called The Last Three here on Tea with TJ. 3 questions unrelated to the topic, and you can answer how freely you would like.
Okay. I suppose.
Where do you find the most peace?
Where do I find the most peace? In my house. So I'm very introverted. I'm working on becoming an ambivert, but I'm naturally an introvert. So I find the most peace when I am like at home, sometimes in silence, but sometimes just like chilling out, watching something that doesn't require a lot of brain work on TV, just give my brain a break. But generally at home.
I love that. Yeah. Same. What are you most afraid of?
Ooh. What am I most afraid of? So many things. I guess I'm most afraid of not fully realizing my purpose or not making the impact that I'm here to make. Not doing the thing that I'm supposed to do while I am here.
I love that. That's same. And then final question. How do you practice gratitude?
I write them down. I write things down. I sit down and I really think about all of the things that I have and how my lived experience is and often looks so very different than a lot of other people's. This gratitude practice that I'm doing right now is truly making me see how grateful I should have always been. And it's also showing me a lot of privilege or privileges that I've had that I've taken for granted. And so I am in the habit or the practice of really truly writing those things down. If I can't write them down in the moment, then I just think them, I speak them, and just say, I am so thankful for X, Y, and Z, or I am so grateful for whatever it may be, and really just put it out there just so the powers that be understand that I am not trying to take these things for granted.
I love that. Well, with that, thank you so much again for doing this.
Thank you for having me.
And with that, folks, I will see you next week.